When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as judges in Beersheba, no doubt to save himself a little bit of travel. But his sons were not righteous. They took bribes. They didn't do the job properly. And so the elders came to him and said, "Appoint us a king, so that when you go, we have a king, like all the other nations." This really upset Samuel, because God was their king. He was the one who was ruler over them. Whenever he judged, it was according to the law of God. And man's law would never be as good as God's law. He took the matter to the Lord, and the Lord said, "Heed the voice of the people. They haven't rejected you, they've rejected me, but warn them of the implications." And so it was that God directed Samuel to appoint a king over the children of Israel. The kind of king they wanted, one like the nations, a man who would be impressive, a man who could lead them in battle. The Lord chose Saul, a young man from the tribe of Benjamin, the smallest of the tribes. He was particularly handsome, and he was from a very reputable family. His father's donkeys had got lost, and Saul was sent with a servant to look for them. And when they couldn't find them, they came to Samuel, because he happened to be in that village. The Lord informed Samuel the previous day, and so Samuel prepared that Saul would eat with him at the feast that was held in the town that day. Having spoken to him at length during the evening, Samuel roused Saul early in the morning, and went out of the town with him. Sending the servant on ahead, Samuel took a flask of oil and poured it on his head, and kissed him and said, "Is it not because the Lord has anointed you commander over his inheritance? When you have departed from me today, you will find 2 men by Rachel's tomb in the territory of Benjamin at Zelzah, and they will say to you, 'The donkeys which you went to look for have been found.' And now your father has ceased caring about the donkeys and is worrying about you, saying, 'What shall I do about my son?' Then you shall go forward from there and come to the terebinth tree of Tabor. There 3 men going up to God at Bethel will meet you, one carrying 3 young goats, one carrying 3 loaves of bread, and another carrying a skin of wine. And they will greet you and give you 2 loaves of bread, which you shall receive from their hands. After that you shall come to the hill of God, where the Philistine garrison is. And it will happen, when you have come there to the city, that you will meet a group of prophets coming down from the high place with a stringed instrument, a tambourine, a flute, and a harp before them, and they will be prophesying. Then the Spirit of the Lord will come upon you, and you will prophesy with them and be turned into another man. And let it be, when these signs come to you, that you do as the occasion demands, for God is with you. You shall go down before me to Gilgal, and surely I will come down to you to offer burnt offerings, and make sacrifices of peace offerings. 7 days you shall wait, till I come to you, and show you what you should do." And so it was, when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, that God gave him another heart. And all those signs came to pass that day. When they came there to the hill, there was a group of prophets to meet him. Then the Spirit of God came upon him, and he prophesied among them. And it happened, when all who knew him formerly saw that he indeed prophesied among the prophets, that the people said to one another, "What is this that has come upon the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets?" Then a man from there answered and said, "But who is their father?" Therefore it became a proverb, "Is Saul also among the prophets?" And when he had finished prophesying, he went to the high place. Then Saul's uncle said to him and his servant, "Where did you go?" So he said, "To look for the donkeys. When we saw that they were nowhere to be found, we went to Samuel." And Saul's uncle said, "Tell me, please, what Samuel said to you." So Saul said to his uncle, "He told us plainly that the donkeys had been found. But about the matter of the kingdom, he did not tell him what Samuel had said. Then Samuel called the people together to the Lord at Mizpah, and said to the children of Israel, Thus says the Lord God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and delivered you from the hand of the Philistines, and from the hand of all kingdoms, and from those who oppressed you. But you have today rejected your God, who himself saved you from all your adversities and your tribulations. And you have said to him, No, set a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your clans. And when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was chosen. And when he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri was chosen. And Saul the son of Kish was chosen. But when they sought him, he could not be found. Therefore they inquired of the Lord further, Has the man come here yet? And the Lord answered, There he is, hidden among the equipment. So they ran and brought him from there. And when he stood among the people, he was taller than any of the people, from his shoulders upward. And Saul said to all the people, Do you see him whom the Lord has chosen? That there is no one like him among all the people. So all the people shouted and said, Long live the king! Then Samuel explained to the people the behaviour of royalty, and wrote it in a book, and laid it up before the Lord. And Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. And Saul also went home to Gibeah, and valiant men went with him, whose hearts God had touched. But some rebels said, How can this man save us? So they despised him, and brought him no presents, but he held his peace. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together the appointment of Saul as king. There's no incumbent king. Samuel is head of the nation as a judge, implementing the law of God. But the people have asked for a king, and so God gives them in an orderly manner a king. First of all, Saul himself is selected by God. He is anointed, and the Lord prepares him, giving him a new heart. And the verse that strikes me most is that when the Spirit of the Lord will come upon you, you will prophesy with them and be turned into another man. And let it be, when these signs come to you, that you do as the occasion demands. For God is with you. You shall go before me to Gilgal. The point here is that when we have the Spirit of God, God is with us, and we are to do what the occasion demands. It's not a matter of waiting for the Lord to give us flashing lights to say go or don't go, but we do those things that are right. But there are other things that we need to do under God's initiative, and we need to wait on the Lord to know what those things are. And so there were two aspects of the instructions. Those signs come to pass, Saul goes home, a new man. Samuel then calls the people together and formally goes through a process whereby the Lord selects the person to be king. It's not just Samuel who's picking, but the Lord who picks. But, surprise, surprise, the choice still comes out at Saul, who is hiding among the equipment. But they find him and bring him forward, and the people acknowledge him. Long live the king. Of course, there are instructions for the king as to how he is to rule, because while the people regard him as king, the Lord regards him as commander of the Lord's army. He is to be a leader of the people of God. Samuel writes the instructions of how the king is to behave and how the people relate to the king. Some valiant men go with him, men whose hearts God had touched. But there are those who resist him. What can this man do, they say.